Hello everyone, and welcome to Fleet's Catch-Up Ramblings 4. Yep, I am not... No flies on me today. And we are... Well, one of the reasons why I'm doing this is simply because... I'm attempting to get through as many questions as I can in an hour and a half. Because we'll be only running while... 7 o'clock, or maybe half 7. So an hour and a half to 2 hours. Is basically what we're going for this evening. Just gonna let the Patreon audience know that this is going down. As we do. So that they know what the score is. Lions is here. Remember though, Lions, we are... While I will try to engage with the audience as best I can, one of the unfortunate hallmarks of the catch-up ramblings is that we do attempt to plough through questions as quickly as I can. Although, I will admit, Wednesdays, as it was an extra, did go off topic a little bit. But then again, it's ramblings. It's what happens during ramblings. So, I don't know what else you were expecting there. Hello, Stephen Mayer. Nice to see you all. Excellent. Marvellous, fantastic, beautiful. Okay, let's get the YouTube audience in. Sorry, not YouTube audience, Discord audience in. So here we go. Fleet's Catch-Up Ramblings. Oh, I should probably ping for the Catch-Up Ramblings. There we go. There we go.
What do you want?
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So, Fleet's Catch-Up Ramblings on a Friday. So, where are we? Where's my DMs with Dragon so I can get the, there we go. Make sure that I am the right person.
You sure you're Fleet?
Yes, I am perfectly sure I'm Fleet. Thank you.
Good.
That's sometimes, chair. So where was I? Was it 53? Yes, it was 53. Not dealing with that one.
Do it to go through the document.
No, we did that one already. We did that one. So, should we nickname the 2nd Pacific Squadron the Pathetic Black Fleet? No, not really. Because given the cards they were dealt, given what they were asked to do, the fact that they made it to Tsushima is a feat in of itself. The fact that they actually gave the Japanese a fight, where they inflicted serious damage to some Japanese warships, is another feat in and of itself. So, I mean, there you are. It wasn't really a black squadron. Admiral Rossosvensky worked wonders. He really, really did. Wellesley, we don't really. We just work through the questions. I only really note what day's questions were on when I change ramblings. So, for example, now we're on ramblings 54. But again, that's the only time I've mentioned that that we will let you know when the things change. Okay, question. So, Fleet, you know the oldest ancestor to the Yamato-class battleship? No, I don't.
What now?
The oldest ancestor to the Yamato-class battleship. That's technically the ironclad frigate Congo.
Yeah, whichever the first one that they bought. However,
Yeah, that. What if they had so? Would they be capable to the Yamatos tactically? They can operate Well, the Yamatos can operate in the waters off Guadalcanal. The only thing stopping them is a slight risk of grounding, but that wasn't really the main concern.
and the
Uh,
fuck off huge numbers of aircraft carriers, but we don't know.
So basically, it's basically 5 ships with 4 twin 16-inch 50s. Well, first of all, the Japanese didn't operate 16-inch guns; they used 16.1-inch guns, and I believe, I think it would have been equivalent to the Nagato. I think it would have been improved versions, or just the Nagato's guns. Yeah, 40-centimeter guns. Yeah, the 41-centimeter guns. I think they were, 45 caliber weapons, so I don't think they would have developed a 50 caliber version of that weapon. They would have probably improved the 45. But it's possible, though. Depends on when they're built and exactly what ships you're referring to. Either way, a ship with 8 16-inch guns, 4 triple 6-inch gun turrets, which is a bit of a weird choice for a second battery, but alright. 4 by 2 5-inch dual purpose, well, it wouldn't be because Japanese 5-inch on battleships was single purpose, not dual purpose. It was AA mounts. 31 knots, armor comparable to the South Dakota, except it has a 14-inch belt. So you've got 5 of these ships. Well, first of all, if you've got 5 of these ships, what else are you not building? The problem with this question, and the reason I'm having trouble answering it, is that to get 5 of these ships, you need to use additional slipways. Say what you like about the Yamatos, but the Japanese made entirely the right choice only building them in pairs at a time, so that they weren't using all of their slips to just build their new capital ships. They had other slips 3 to do other things. Steel allowing, of course. If you got 5 of these, you basically aren't getting Shikaku and Zuikaku. And possibly other ships as well. Because you're going to need those large slipways to put these battleships on. So... well, obviously they're going to be better than the Congos because they are better.
That's really not saying much, though.
I mean, you're saying
Yeah.
you're saying converted battle cruiser that's become a fast battleship versus actual, true, full-blown fast
Ship that's
battleship.
built from
Like it's not even like that. Honestly, if one of those does a Hiroshima, South Dakota's not just burning and needs to be helped away. South Dakota's dead. Like, make no mistake, the ship that replaces Kirishima will probably also die, because what she's just done to South Dakota will be done to her by Washington, but it will be an even trade. The Americans will lose a capital ship, and the Japanese will lose a capital ship. But that's about it, really. There's a few of the cruiser actions that will be different, well, because they have the armor now to just flat out say, I don't care you've got 8-inch guns. I don't care how much you close down. I'm still going to laugh hysterically while blatting you with 16-inch shell fire. Basically. Question?
Just cycling back briefly. So, yes, the oldest ancestor of the Yamato would not have been able to serve off Guadalcanal because it was, of course, the former CSS Stonewall.
Yes.
A 3-gun ironclad ram
Yes.
that was bought from the States in 1869.
Yes. Yes, indeed. But basically, you're not looking at massive changes. The only real thing is the one about, around what happens with Hiroshima and the other actions in which the Congos are involved. But aside from a few more US cruisers being sunk and the US potentially losing a capital ship, you're not looking at a massive difference apart from that, basically. Question, which USN ground attacker carrier-based aircraft is better, the A6 or the A7? The A6. It's not even a contest. The A7's a nice platform, don't get me wrong, but the A6 is just flat out better. It carries more ordnance, it's got better electronic warfare capabilities, it's more stable, it has better range. It's not even a contest.
Bomb truck.
How possible would it have been to turn a 747 into an AWACS? Oh, you could absolutely do it, but the question would be why when the US already has a proven 4-engine platform built by Boeing in the form of the 707 platform and its derivatives.
It don't have to be that big.
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
Or, like, literally, to get an E3 Sentry, they just said, okay, this tanker platform we've been using for years and is a thoroughly mature platform that we know how to maintain and operate. Let's just use that, because it's a thoroughly mature platform we know how to operate.
It works.
Yeah. Montana wants to know the spacing of the mooring points in Pearl Harbor for his project. That's not something any of us know here, I'm afraid. That's either something you need to ask Dr. Clark or Drac, or, unfortunately, I'm going to say you're going to have to go and do your own research on that one, because that's not something that anyone here can answer off the top of our heads.
You probably just look at a picture of the anchorage and go, well, that's there, that's there, that's there. You know how long X battleship is, so just sort of...
Also, for those people who are posting memes about how, I suppose, I guess we're doing this on Fridays now, Fleet has been doing this for like 4 weeks now.
Your fault for not being observant.
The trend has been there, basically, as that Fleet's trying to get through the old questions.
Backlog.
In the game series,
trying to make sure that people's questions have at least been answered.
Okay. In the game series Tropico, you can get an aircraft carrier as an El Presidente of some small Caribbean island nation. What would the US's reaction to that be? Well, first of all, you get Kuznetsov. And I will point out, you don't really get an aircraft carrier per se. You basically... Okay, yes, you get an
Also, doesn't this depend which way you go as well? Like, you can actually align with different nations.
Yeah, like, it's going to depend entirely on whether you're friendly or hostile to the US.
Yeah.
But what I would also say is that one of the things that I do find hilarious is that you buy it, and it sits there, and it doesn't move. It's basically just a floating runway that doesn't move, which is probably about correct for how that ship would be operated by some tin pot El Presidente.
Yeah. Somehow worse than the Russians. And it's Kuznetsov, so the fact that there are even flight ops on it is impressive at this point.
And the US reaction would basically be, oh, you're telling me that a Caribbean nation that has no other naval presence to speak of has an aircraft carrier just moored up and we know exactly where it's going to be. And it doesn't move. Right. Okay. And you're telling us that
I reckon probably because if it put to sea, it would sink.
Yeah, and you're telling us also that the weapon systems probably don't work? These in the point defense weapons? And they have no ASW assets? The US is just going to go, we literally do not care, it is a non-threat. We just throw a sub at it, or a bunch of cruise missiles.
It probably makes some diplomatic stink about it.
Yeah, yeah, obviously.
Purely as a point-winning exercise. Like, they're not actually... Like, no one in Naval Command is like, that's a problem. No, it's not.
Basically.
It's not a problem.
I know we answered that one already.
Which one?
The one about the modern cargo ships. We did that already. USS Pennsylvania, which had 130 guns, versus Nuestra Senora La Santísima Trinidad with 136 guns. Who wins? USS Pennsylvania, because she's designed to carry... She's pierced for that many guns. And her design is a functional ship, rather than a giant moving block of wood that goes wherever the wind takes it. Pennsylvania can answer her rudder. Santissima Trinidad struggles to answer her rudder on a good day. It's really easy to answer that.
Also, you know, she was commissioned in the 1830s, so she had a much better...
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, obviously because they'd have had like shot. They were not shot. Shell. Which
I think there was some shell guns, but not many. Yeah, Dragon. I
It
think
had
you can see
46
what I've put there.
armament.
I think you can see what I've put there with that. No.
Didn't we also have, I want to say we already had that one in a similar regard previously.
Yes. No, and my answer was the same then. Okay, so we're on Ramblings 55 now. So answered. What was the thought process on the RBU 6000 ASW weapon system? Why did the Soviets and the Warsaw Pact built ships still use Hedgehog-style ASW weapons in the mid-Cold War until today? And why didn't they rely mostly on helicopters, lightweight torpedoes, and ASROC? Oh, they had all of those things. The Soviets had helicopters, lightweight torpedoes, and an ASROC, and an ASROC equivalent. They just also had oh shit, there's a NATO submarine right fucking there. Quick, volley fire the MacGuffin at them.
Also, by the looks of it, it's not even that big of an actual launcher, really.
It really isn't.
It very much can just be bolted to the deck.
It's also such a responsive weapon system, and it's got a fairly decent reach.
Yeah, it's
5,500 meters.
Yeah,
not too bad.
Yeah.
And
admittedly, if a NATO submarine has got within 5 kilometers of you, you should probably be panicking a bit more.
No.
Yeah, there are Mark 48s somewhere very close.
That is kind of what the RBU 6000 system is.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why it was kept around, because they knew that the first option they might get is of a NATO submarine firing on them, and they know that even though NATO torpedoes have a fairly decent range, NATO submarines will usually try to close down a contact to get a more accurate solution. So there was every chance that when you get the launch transient, you get a clear enough picture to launch an RBU 6000 salvo at him.
And you can also put them on things as small as like poties.
Yeah.
Which you can't fit any other anti-submarine weapon apart from actual depth charges on something like a potee.
And the thing with the RBU 6000 is the warheads it fires are actually they're both simple and complex at the same time. Their depth is fairly easy. So basically, when you drop them, they not only detect pressure and depth, but they also have limited capability to go, ooh, there's something next to me, boom.
No, they don't.
I'm sure some of them do.
Not the RB60s don't.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking of
the 90s do.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the 90s. Sorry, yeah, the 60s are basically simple, set at depth.
They are the most basic. Yeah, target depth between 10 and 500 meters. 23 kilograms of explosive. Fire. Theoretically speaking, yes, you probably could use them as an anti-surface weapon, Sea Dodders. I wouldn't recommend it, but it could theoretically be done.
Well, they are used as direct fire weapons at the moment. So.
Yeah, but let's leave that where it is. Do you think the planned Nimrod MR4 would be better than the P3 Orion or the P8 Poseidon if the aircraft was introduced to British service? I'm sorry, but the Nimrod platforms were really showing their age. It's an airframe from the 50s, and unfortunately, it's an airframe from the 50s that hasn't been nearly as well cared for in terms of upgrade packages, lifetime extensions as the fleets of P3s and other US aircraft have been from the period. I'm sorry, but upgrading an old fleet rather than doing the correct thing that we did and purchasing P8 Poseidon, which is a better platform overall, it was entirely the right decision. Purchasing P8 Poseidon. It gave us a modern, capable ASW and maritime patrol platform. P8 Poseidon could also do things that the Nimrod couldn't do. It could carry weapons the Nimrod couldn't carry. And make no mistake, while the Nimrod can do ASW work, it can't do it as well as a P3 or a P8.
Unfortunately.
Well, actually, I think honestly, if they were given the full MRA4 upgrade, they probably could have been pretty decent.
Yeah, decent.
Reasonable.
Yeah, decent.
Definitely compared to the P, they'd be definitely better than the P3. Against the P8.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
That's a bit more question, but I still think they still would have done pretty well, though.
I'm not denying they wouldn't have been a capable platform, but if the option is upgrade MR4 and buy P8, it's no contest. You buy P8.
To be fair, I think that's primarily due to the other. I think they primarily chose the P8s over them just because of other military overflows at the time. But yeah.
But it was the right call, regardless of why it was made. It was like even if it was a case of British procurement broken clock being right at least once every 500 years.
Maybe. But yeah. P8 will definitely get the job done for what's needed these days.
Oh yeah, I mean the P8's a fantastic platform. Like you've got all the bells and whistles the P3 Orion has, and then more on top of that with better endurance and much better transit time.
Yeah, but it just doesn't look as good as but it doesn't look as good as the Nimrod.
I don't know. I like the P8. I like it.
The P8 looks boring. Though.
P8 is just a airliner.
It's literally just a 737.
There is nothing wrong with how the 737 looks. I like the angry 737.
But it doesn't look as good as the Nimrod.
Look at the schnoz on that thing. You know.
The Nimrod looks far nicer.
Did you just say the Nimrod?
Far meaner.
Did you just say the Nimrod has a schnoz?
It kind of does.
Yeah. What is that thing hanging out under its face that isn't a nose?
The Nimrod schnoz.
I'll be honest. If you painted it yellow, it would probably be a relatively angry beak.
Oh, bloody hell! I love it.
It's just a big bird of prey looking like, no, where's my little fishies?
Train question. What if the UK were to follow Japanese lead on Shinkansen? How different would the UK rail network look then?
Not gonna happen.
No, but basically, when the Japanese are doing Shinkansen and beginning to build that, the UK is beginning its modernization plan. It's already decided how it's going to upgrade.
Which is shut down lots of things.
Oh no, that's prior to. No, the modernization plan actually starts prior to the Beeching report.
Yeah, but I suppose when it comes into when Shinkansen comes into fruition, a lot of things are being. There are certainly no plans to build anything new in the 50s.
Also, the Shinkansen just wouldn't work in terms of the actual UK rail infrastructure, because otherwise, unless we're going to be building straight lines everywhere.
I mean, no. I mean, you could, given how curved the first Shinkansen was, you can build a Shinkansen style high speed rail in the UK. It's possible.
I just don't think you'd actually get the same speeds out of it, nor would it be the same effect.
No, you could. Bearing in mind that when Shinkansen first starts operating, it's 124 miles an hour.
The
my
ECML basically
point because you have the Intercity 125.
A bit late.
It's a bit later,
but later than that.
But we do get.
I mean, I think
even before that though, you had 125.
Yeah, but what I mean
is, the Delta is going to go 100.
Yeah,
but enough.
Yeah, it's the reason why the UK wasn't too bothered about pursuing high-speed rail, because as far as we were concerned, we could achieve similar results for much less cost. The problem that then arises is that, of course, high-speed rail is very easy to future-proof and expand, which is what we found in Japan, Germany, and France. Which is the problem.
So you're referring to this O series Shinkansen.
Indeed, I am.
And also, to a certain extent,
and I will
try and do 130.
And I will point out, that it was a much bigger jump for Japan because they were going from 3'6", doing about 60 to 70, to 130.
Yeah, whereas the problem with the Britain's propensity to build railways is we made or filled all the corridors with railways already.
Yeah, and I will point out that Japan was basically jumping from their entire network being 3'6" Cape gauge, which we helped them build, to their first standard gauge railway line basically in existence. And that's why that speed jump was such a massive difference for them. Whereas in the UK, building an entirely new network to gain 20 to 30 miles an hour of speed.
Wouldn't even get in that, really.
Yeah, it wasn't really considered worth it. And then literally, British Rail Engineering Limited said, "Hold my beer," and came out with the HST 125 along with limited network upgrades.
No. Oh no, better one yet. You actually have British Rail saying something else so how would you like 156 miles an hour?
Yeah, I know the APT, but let's not.
Oh no!
Let us
the
not.
APT-E especially.
That
had even more features.
Let us not remember what was taken from us by members of.
And that was and that was 1970.
Yes, let us not.
Was it when it finally?
Let us not remember what was taken from us by idiotic members of the UK press.
No, remember exactly what was taken from us.
APT incredibly sexy.
APT
91, my beloved.
APT-E, I think, is the best one because that's actually got the full tilting system and all the bells and whistles.
I mean, E does look better than P, though. You've got to admit.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I mean,
E's just nice.
Also, as someone who's literally been allowed to wander around all the insides of the APT-E, I have far more respect for the -E than anything else.
no, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to go with the P. I much prefer how the P looks.
The E is. Oh, look at that map. E is better.
No, I
It is
can't.
far nicer.
It's so
No,
strange
I
seeing
can't-
this
I
picture of
can't.
it next to a 101 and some Mark 1s. Like,
Yeah,
what the fuck?
I mean, I'm
Fox is
sorry.
not here. We can
I do
actually
like,
argue about this.
I do like. I'm sorry. I can't deny. I like the APTP. It's a very, very sexy machine.
But the E is even better looking.
No, it's not.
Like, the P is just so flat, it looks like someone just took a block of cheese.
Yeah, but look at the distinctive livery. It's the first thing to ever
Yeah,
wear
but no.
the City livery.
Livery doesn't. No.
Livery
Livery doesn't get to play here because theoretically either of them could have had that livery.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Imagine
You're telling
APTE
me...
in Intercity Swallow. Come on now, Flip.
No. I'm sorry, but the APTP looks fantastic. The APTE looks like a giant squashed wedge.
At least it's not a cheese block.
Now listen here. The cheese block is fantastic. Everyone likes the cheese block.
Right, so, for the record, we're basically comparing, for the chat on Discord at least,
If you
The
don't know
advanced
about APTs,
the Advanced Passenger Train Experimental, which is going to be the one on the left, and the Advanced Passenger Train Production, which is the one on the right.
I think it was
You aren't doing the APTP justice.
No,
there.
APTP is prototype.
Is it
Production.
prototype? Well, no, because you've got E Experimental.
E experimental, P is
And the P-
prototype, S was going to be production, but they never got around to it.
And also, this was one of the best images I could actually find, Fleet, of the APT-P.
Really?
Because it's actually surprisingly hard to find images of them. But on seeing the APT-E in proper colours, I think would have been gorgeous.
I mean, yeah. Look, I'm sorry, but you can't.
The one on the right,
You
the
can't.
one on the right is basically someone just took a block of cheese.
I'm sorry, but look at that. Tell me that is not incredibly sexy looking. Look at that.
No, it's not.
Not really. It's just it's too droopy. The face is too droopy.
Yeah,
The snoop must droop.
but also the other one
No,
sits
the
higher.
snoot was not droop
The other
that
one,
much.
the other one, and the -E is looking down upon you, and you're drooping. At least it sits far better
Anyway,
on the rails, looking
look.
down at the peasantry.
Look, all right, we are quite clearly
Perched
getting.
high.
Look, we really are getting a little bit. We really
I
are.
mean, neither's a 91, but there we go.
Okay, we really are.
I know we just know your opinion's wrong in general.
Shush. What if the British keep all the dreadnoughts from World War One in service, and what would their role be in World War Two if such a thing happens? Well, first of all, the Admiralty, the Treasury,
money?
and
No, not even just that. More a case of
Everyone's-
What happened to Washington?
Yeah, first of all, that.
Yeah.
Secondly, the Admiralty doesn't want to do this. The Treasury doesn't want to do this. The government doesn't want to do this.
Actually, I know exactly what they would do. Say there are, for whatever reason, everyone has had a massive wave of, I don't know, let the British do what they wish, and they let the British have the dreadnoughts, which I know what the British government does.
Oh, it's quite simple.
They
really.
scrap almost all of them.
And if they have to keep them, they basically just all of the old hulks of frigates and ships of the line go away, and hulks of old 12 and 13.5-inch dreadnoughts take their place as barrack ships, receiving ships, gunnery training schools.
Well, there were a number
shore
already
installations.
used for that.
Yeah, exactly. This is the thing.
Like-
A lot of them are basically absolutely useless.
Oh, go away with your American trains,
There's
Benno. If
nothing-
you want a good train, look at a Deltic.
There's nothing wrong with a daylight. C-Cube's got a good point there. The daylight is very, very sexy.
No,
It's a respectable American streamliner.
I don't like the front of it.
But look at
It's
the
as good
orange
as
and the
American-
red.
Right.
Mm,
Yeah, but
and the
I
white
hate
light on the
orange.
wheels.
The only locomotive that's made orange works somewhat as the TGV.
Yeah. Also, Benno, I will point out you posted Conrail. That's cringe.
In fact, hell, if you want that, let me bring up the DP1.
But basically, very quickly, just to keep us on
Yeah,
track. 'cause
the
we-
British all
So
of the old ones
basically-
just get scrapped.
basically
because
the only
the British government's already worked out they don't need to be kept.
yeah, the only ships that stick around, basically, bear in mind, in deep reserve are the Iron Dukes.
Yeah.
Like as
The
in,
only one-
as in could be possibly recalled to active
anything
service.
actually. The only things you might keep, because I know technically speaking it says dreadnoughts, but I'm assuming this also probably allows the battle cruisers.
Yeah.
You probably have Tiger kept.
Hmm.
Of all of them, you probably have Tiger is probably the only one they actually keep around. All 12-inch gone. Early 13.5s gone.
No, I can see an argument for the Iron Dukes being in deep reserve, and then they would be reactivated for basically just shore
I could perhaps see
bombardment
them
and
as convoy
convoy escorts.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
Free up the R's.
Yeah, basically just be ours, but crap.
Or you
Honestly,
or
if they
you
really
basically
wanted to just maybe rip out a turret and stick some stuff there,
or you
midships.
Honestly, you might see a very basically before instead of being scrapped in 1931 with Second London, since they're allowed to be kept, what you'll see is the Iron Dukes having a very, very basic refit where their engines are where their engines are reconditioned, the central turret's removed, some AA guns are added. Oh, actually no, the central turret probably stays in, but the engines are basically the engines aren't overhauled, but they're basically all the gunks cleaned out to make sure they can still do 21 knots, and then they're put into mothballs. They're then probably dragged out of mothballs at the start of the Second World War to be convoy escorts.
Didn't Drac make a point about retaining 13.5 ships in his Tiger video? Quite possibly. But
the problem is...
Yeah, I would agree.
Is,
if they do
we
keep them, you are
Yeah.
keeping the 15s in the main battle line. But
Yeah,
the
here's the
only
thing.
ships that you're realistically keeping is the
Iron Dukes. And Iron Dukes,
And
Tiger, and maybe one of the other Splendid Cats, but that's a massive maybe.
Probably not.
What's the question?
Basically, what if Britain was allowed
We've
to keep
already
all of their
basically
dreadnoughts
answered
from
it.
World War One in service? What would their role be in World War Two if such thing happens?
And it also wasn't just allowed; it was also basically the question. Basically, made a point of sort of demanding that it happen. So we've had to basically figure out what the heck. We're basically we've basically answered it, and we're winding down. So we're just gonna move on.
Tiger.
Yeah, they're not wanting the tax Catchup and Tiger around.
Foxo, we're moving on. What if the tribals?
I'm just confirming your point, like.
Thank you. No, it's more
She's
just
agreeing
I
with
need
you
to,
for
I
once.
need to go forwards. Speed.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
You go backwards, clearly.
No. What if the tribals use 3 Dido 5.25-inch turrets? Are you trying to make the designers have an aneurysm?
Not happening.
That is, it's also an incredible...
5.25-inch turrets are already taking too long to procure, let alone the time difference is also well of.
You
when
also
the tribals are made
have to completely
these, but-
rework the ship. Basically.
Also-
No, you don't. You don't.
Also, realistic.
Fox says that's
Right.
going to massively
No,
change
right,
their...
right,
That's going to
No,
massively
I
change
get
their
what you-
metacentric height.
Right, Fleet. Let me
That's not
explain.
what she actually means here. Just remembered.
Right. There's a prelim to the tribals that is also related to the Dido class.
Yeah.
That was a larger version of the tribals that had 5.25-inch guns.
It's where you get the various different 5.25-inch designs from.
Yes. But they were spun off into cruiser development, and it was the tribals were split off from there.
I don't know why
Because the designs, I think it's... Oh, fuck, what was the design?
I don't remember the exact one. Because there was also
But
designs.
essentially,
You actually have 3 designs come from it. You have the tribals, which split off. You've got the Didos, and then you've got the one they had for the idea for the towns, which is K25. I want to say.
K25 is the Atlanta. And essentially, they realized that to make this work, you're not building a destroyer anymore, you're building a light cruiser. So they dropped down to the 4.7, and you got the tribals from it. Part of the reason the tribals are so fucking durable.
K25 for those in chat who are curious.
Hmm.
There's technically also at least one of the K25s.
Well, the designs for K25s has a set of has this pair of wing firing twins in the center as well.
Yeah. Another has, instead of the 4 turrets at the back, it's only 3, but they end up getting full auto loading systems.
Yeah. And it's the case of
So
there was an idea for an enlarged tribal with 5.25s, you just have to go back instead of forward.
It's weird, and there's a reason they didn't go with it. Honestly,
Yeah.
honestly, realistically, if they're armed with 3 twin 5.25s, you've actually lost part of what makes the tribals good, which is their 8 guns.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, right, typical. Yes, the Fletcher and Summers had longer service life. Because the fucking tribals are in the entire war.
And the tribals were pushed to their limit the entire war.
And also, more to the point, the tribals are a good ship for the Second World War. They really are not suitable for the post-war world. The daring,
Yeah.
the battles
Also, keep in
are
mind
much better.
what the Fletchers and Sumners kept being given to keep them in service.
Oh no!
A lot of these upgrades were questionable by the time you get to start like Fram 3 and such. Early Fram, sure. But it's a case of, yeah, these are Fletchers in service in like the 70s and 80s. You start raising questions.
And it's also because power makes the Fletchers last so long as how many they fucking made.
And
Yeah, as Seeky just pointed out.
and again, it's not so much the Fletchers; it's mainly the Summoners and the Gearings that have real long-term usage potential because of what they are and how much you can actually rework them.
Yeah, it's like the tribals were very durable for destroyers. They are still destroyers.
Yeah.
If you hit them with a torpedo, they will still go bang. But it's like the tribals proved to be very durable when getting near missed by Stukers in the med.
Yeah, but if a Stuka
It's
lands a
that-
bomb hit, if Stuka lands a bomb hit on them, however,
You wouldn't, right. They went through basically all of the tribals post-war. No tribal was suitable for being kept around. Even as a museum, none were able, because
Aside from
they
Haida,
were.
yeah, but Haida was a
Yeah, but
special.
right, that's
Canadians paid a lot for Haida.
And also the Canadian ones were handled a little less viciously
Yeah, I will
in
also.
certain regards.
I
Yeah, they
will
were-
I will also point out that
Like-
Haida sorted with a partially stripped turbine at one point.
Yeah,
That's how hard they were pushed.
I will also point out. I would also like to point out that, again, as I said, different world post-war. The world of destroyer actions that the tribal were built for don't exist in the post-war world.
Yeah.
Arguably, after 1941, they don't exist.
Yeah, like having like the battles and the darings are a recognition of where things are going. Straight top speed really isn't what you need in a destroyer post 1944. What you need is good, accurate gunnery, good ASW equipment, maybe some torpedoes if you're feeling particularly generous, and a decent suite of light AA guns.
It's like the one CQ was put in chat is perfect for the tribals in 45.
Yeah.
They are tired.
Yeah,
And it's also, there's a good argument that the tribals are the last of the torpedo boat destroyers.
yeah,
They're
that sounds-
not escorts, they are destroyers.
Yeah,
Their job is to go and punch something until it has a bloody nose.
exactly.
Right. Moving on.
Yes. So, thoughts on the Turkish carrier? I think it's a logical outgrowth of Turkey's desire to deal with its own security requirements, basically. It's basically an outgrowth of Turkish desire for self-determination in military policy, and a desire to see Turkey to be able to project power across the Mediterranean as and where, and Black Sea as and where they see fit. I think it's something logical for their strategic requirements in the region. No, it is. It makes perfect from the way Turkey is thinking. Bear in mind, Turkey's strategic requirements are very much different than Turkey as part of NATO. Turkey's strategic requirements are radically different. As far as Turkey is concerned, they need the ability to rock up in the Western Mediterranean or anywhere, or in the Indian Ocean, or anywhere they like, independently with their own carrier that will operate either their own domestic Stovall aircraft, which they're working on currently, or mainly drones and rotary winged assets. It makes perfect sense for Turkey to be acting the way they are.
A good way of seeing it
design,
put.
the design.
Explain your point better.
The design of the carrier is basically solid. It's about what you'd expect for a power looking to get into building a carrier for the first time. in terms of capability, air wing, etc. Carry on, Foxo.
Essentially, for its design job for the Turkish fleet, it's very good. Because it's not a we're gonna go fight someone carrier, or go fight someone actual Navy carrier, it's a we've got a carrier to swing our dick around with carrier. Because, let's be real, to be taken seriously as a with power projection in the modern world, you need a carrier.
Yep.
And it's...
Like, the headline reads very differently if Turkish fleet shows up off Kuwait, which is one headline. It reads very differently if Turkish carrier battle group shows up off Kuwait.
Yeah. It's a carrier, it's sort of, as the reason why the Russians still have theirs, it's critical for power projection. And if the Turkish want to be the de facto regional power in the Middle East, you need a carrier.
Yeah. It's the reason why Kuznetsov will soldier on until she's eventually replaced. Because make no mistake, Kuznetsov will eventually, and I use the word eventually very clearly there, be replaced.
Yeah.
By something. Something will replace her in the same role. What that is remains to be seen. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if the Russians don't build a carrier, but instead they buy the second generation Chinese carrier once the Chinese are done with her and want to convert to full Catchup. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
It would.
What if the British had had a pair of Admiral-class battlecruisers at Jutland? It helps, but as to how exactly the butterflies flap out, it's entirely different.
Depends how they're used.
If they have a pair of Admiral class, they'll be like Tiger, so they'll be fresh, and by fresh I mean they'll be worked up, but they won't have had Beatty's claws stuck into them, like Tiger hadn't. So she was.
Beatty's still in command of them.
Yes.
So.
Not necessarily, actually.
No, there's no.
Depends where they might actually end up.
No, there's no.
Well, they're going to be in BT's.
No. Yeah, they're going to be with BT Dragon. They're battle cruisers.
Or they might have been swapped. Or they might have been cycled out for gunnery practice with Grand Fleet.
That was all with. Possibly,
but they're not.
No, it's.
But then they're going to not play as much of a role in the.
Yeah,
I think actually that would allow them to do more of a role potentially with their speed.
Not really, because if you're because if they're with the Grand Fleet, they're working as the Grand Fleet's scout and screen. They're not really like, for example, you don't really see. Like, they'll come south as in the same way that 3rd Battlecruiser Squadron does. And it again, like, it all depends on where they are. Like, they're going to have an impact, to be sure. They're not going to blow up. I'm very certain of that. But
I can make them blow up.
Not.
Their 32 knot speed as well.
Yeah,
is going to be
it's
a
30,
horrifying.
Dragon, remember, this is Hood Fresh. It's not 32. It's 33, 34.
Yeah, but what I will say.
Yes, but they're meant to go at 30. I guess they could push it up to that.
Yeah,
yes,
but what I will say is, you're looking at an impact on the battle. Maybe another German battle cruiser sunk, in addition to Lutzow. Maybe Seydlitz goes down before she reaches home, and doesn't ground in the dry dock like she does historically. But you're not looking at a major reversal of British fortunes.
Yeah, the battle's not going to be different because the British. That's the thing with the battle. Jellicoe does not want a Grand Fleet engagement. He wants to maintain the integrity of the Grand Fleet.
Well,
yeah,
yes,
but right. So, something interesting is the fact that if they're with the battle cruisers, Germany loses a lot more battle cruisers.
Not a lot. I don't.
No, because ships like Definger are protected from the 12 and mostly resistant to 13.5s. They're not protected against 15-inch. And the Royal Navy battle cruisers, even in their current gunnery state, were still scoring significant hits.
Yeah, Foxo.
You've got the problem with the shells.
Yes,
but
like for example, Von der Tann takes a 15-inch shell from her QE on her main armor belt, and it doesn't penetrate. That's how bad.
But then there's also
is.
others where they just do and wreck house.
Yeah.
But also another question is, where's BT got his flag then with these two ships? You're telling me he's not going to be on the flagship? Or you're not going to tell me he's going to move his flag to these ships with far better flag facilities and are far faster and more powerful vessels?
BT was very fond of Lion. BT was overly fond of Lion.
There's fondness, and then there's literally just everything better in every regard.
I don't think you're over. I think it's hard to overstate quite how much.
I reckon.
Also, he might also get
Counterpoint,
assigned
Lion has
to-
really nice Admiral quarters. She
potentially,
has
but he might not.
really
I
nice
do
Admiral
think he
quarters.
might go for these ships because they are just that much better in every way.
I mean, are they Admirals or are they Hood?
They're
That's
admirals.
the question. I don't know, man. I should have the...
They will have the facility for an admiral.
Maybe.
That's just how they operate.
Because Hood
Yes.
gets refit for that. Hood gets refit for that.
Hood is an admiral class, yes, Yuki.
A heavily reworked
she'll-
Admiral class. I assume by
But
if we're
again, though,
talking about
I
the
do think the Hoods would indeed, the admirals indeed would still have flag facilities because
No.
there would be
The
no sense.
Admiral class as designed don't.
I
But Hood,
think
after
I'm sure they do.
revisions, gets them.
So again, I think Fox.
That's where it's important. Is it Hood or is it an Admiral?
No, it's a
That's an
pair.
important-
It's a pair of
It's a
admirals.
pair of admirals.
So I assume it's
Yeah.
the original flavor admirals. If they're getting them by Jutland, we're really having to speed through things.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's revision Admirals, they just start Germany loses more
Well,
battles.
no, I'm almost more imagining that they just teleport there because otherwise you're not getting admirals before Jutland.
Yeah. So next question.
Right, yeah,
thoughts
just
on
clarify
the-
for Yuki. The Hood design is the Admirals that's reworked with the uniform armor belt post Jutland. That's what we say when we refer to Hood.
And it's the reason why
The Admiral,
Go
the
on.
Admiral class we refer to are the original design that has an distributed armor belt similar to that HMS Tiger. Capiche?
Yes. Right. Okay. So, thoughts on the future Dutch FFG? Do you think it enters the DDG bracket with the amount of armaments? If the Dutch call it a guided missile frigate, it's a guided missile frigate to the Dutch. Simple as that. The lines are so blurred these days, you basically have to go by what navies call their ships now.
Generous, but
No, you basically have to. There's no real clear lines anymore.
yes,
Only-
definitely.
Only in certain cases does that apply. When it comes to service combatants, where exactly you draw the line between a corvette and a frigate, there isn't really one apart from maybe tonnage.
Usually the role.
Maybe tonnage. But then again, for the Alien Dragon, you can have general purpose corvettes. You can have anti-submarine corvettes. You can have general purpose frigates. You can have anti-service. You can have surface warfare frigates. You can have anti-submarine frigates. You can have air defense frigates. Same thing.
Yeah, thank
Isn't
you, Spitfire,
the
for bringing up
difference
my
between
point.
corvettes? The difference between a corvette and a frigate, the fact that even in the modern day, a frigate's blue water, a frigate's green water.
No.
The
No.
covert,
No.
you mean?
No.
Corvette, sorry, a green water.
No. Not at all. Not even close.
Mainly for stuff like the Baltic and
Nope.
Coastalways.
No, not at all. That's not been the case for a couple of decades now.
Okay.
With some of the larger corvettes that have
If
been
it
coming.
identifies as a frigate, it's a frigate, okay?
Yeah, like there's a real crossover between large corvettes and small frigates now. Like with basically whether they are one or the other, depending entirely on what navies say. And then again, there's the same thing with destroyers and frigates. There's a real crossover point between what's a large destroyer and a small, basically what's a large frigate or a small destroyer. Like for example, the Russians called the Admiral Gorshkov class a frigate. Yet she has more firepower than a good chunk of Western destroyers, apart from US destroyers. So, is she a destroyer, or is she, as the Russians say, a frigate? This is the thing. This
That's
is
a lot
where
of BLS.
yeah, this is where the problems all come in. You basically have to go off what the navies in question say they are, and what, because then you have a rough idea of how they're going to be used and what role they're going to slot into. You can't
Yeah,
really,
their
you
doctrinal
can't,
role
you
is not
can't
there.
really go off tonnage and weapon fit anymore. It's become far too nebulous and vague.
What we need is another World War to sort this shit out.
I wouldn't go that far.
No,
That's
reality
usually how it-
check.
no, that's literally how it works usually.
Yeah, no.
Like reality
Well,
check
Everyone's
everything
standardised
until
that
frigate
everyone
has a
has to
specific.
standardise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like everything that don't work as like a large corvette or something gets clapped, so the roles are solidified again.
Like, also,
If
if
you
you really
are
want a
a-
worse example of it, going off sloops, sloops have like 10 different definitions until World War One.
hmm
And I
So-
love
If
you
all
are-
of them.
If you
Hate all
are
of
a
them.
Japanese crewman and you see Yukikaze escorting you, what do?
Nothing.
There's nothing you can do, because if she's with you, she's going to walk away laughing, and your
Well,
ship's
technically
going to die.
speaking, it's just if we're apparently a Japanese crewman. We technically don't have any future knowledge, so nothing. If we do have future knowledge, what can we can do? Swim home?
No.
Question-
You
There's-
turn your brain on and you go, is it wartime yet?
Can I
If
get
the answer is
reassigned
no.
for the Yukikaze?
You're fine, yeah. How vital is it for the US today and in the future to rebuild or build airfields on islands that are famous from World War II, like the Marianas, Iwo Jima, Palaus, or other east of the Philippines, to counter China in case of war against China? Not really vital in any
Not
way.
Japan.
Yeah, you've got Japan, you've got Taiwan, you've got the Philippines, you've got places like... And basically, for things further afield, you're basically talking about staging areas. So you've got places like Guam, you've got certain key base. Basically,
You've got those giant nuclear-powered moving islands, you know.
Yeah, like basically, you've got the US currently has all the air bases and air stations they need for a war against China. It's
And it
China
needs
that it's China that's having to build new islands to put air bases on.
Because
It
they don't
needs to be
have
the
the giant
Americans can
nuclear-powered
operate off
ones
Hawaii
that move.
Hawaii,
or Alaska.
there is that for operations in the Central Pacific, but at that point, if you're having to operate in the Central Pacific, things have gone
I'm sorry.
catastrophically
A
wrong.
B1 can get to Mongolia and back quite easy from Hawaii.
Yes, that's the case, but against
Yeah, modern aircraft have dumbass ranges.
yes, I'm aware, Foxo, but it's more about responsiveness to threats. Yes, you can sort your B1 from Alaska or Hawaii, but your time on target is going to be much longer than an F-35 sorted from Guam or, more ideally, Taiwan or Japan.
But that's kind of my point. Like, a lot of the rebuilt bases, when the war went towards the west, were used for strategic bombing.
Yes, but I feel
Oh,
like
fleets
you're...
might be
I-
fun.
I feel like you're trying to apply World War II lessons to modern conflict with China. It doesn't really work.
I'm not.
Right, look,
What I'm saying
look,
is that those bases are too far back to be frontline bases,
yes.
Hello, Phoenix.
And-
Right.
nowhere near enough to be.
Right, look, I'll be right back because I have to go do something in a second. Because
Then go on.
Keep talking, Dragon. Keep working through the questions. You have the list.
Oh, Fleet's done for, by the way. Fleet's about to get onto all the Trafalgar questions. Which, yeah, he doesn't really have any answers. I'll be honest, I don't have too many of these answers either way, but some of them I might be able to.
I
Next
like
one,
sailing
next one on the
ships.
actual list, though, that hasn't. Right, what's that? Right? Fleet's just put that one to answered. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that wasn't answered. Which was Fuso and Yamashiro are replaced by Yamato and Musashi.
Okay. Question: does anyone want, while Fleet's gone, does anyone want to know the difference between the Admiral class and Hood?
Yeah.
No.
Yes, you did just change that one. Also, I just realized I really wish Fleet would stop actually editing the questions. They're meant to leave, like, he's editing some of the questions to make it appear more visually correct. These are meant to be the exact questions quoted. But since he put it as answer, we should also probably answer Yamato and Musashi replace Fuso and Yamashiro. I'm not actually sure whether it's exactly referring to, but I have some ideas.
Isn't that oh god, which one was that? Was it Washington?
Samar, or later Gulf, and Surigao
Yeah.
Strait. Which, if they appear at Surigao Strait, that's going to be interesting.
Is Yamashiro? Yeah, Yamashiro went down at Surigao Strait.
Yeah, both
So,
Yamashiro
yeah.
and Fuso end up going down because of it.
Yeah, so but well, yeah, that would be because they.
So I'm assuming. So basically, the Battle of Surigao Strait is what's being referred to here.
Yeah, I think so. That makes sense.
Which that's going to be a bit of a shock.
Hmm.
Because what the US have at hand basically is the USS Louisville, Portland, and Minneapolis, alongside of the Denver, Columbia, and 9 Fletchers. Task
Right.
Unit 77.2.1 does have 2 Colorados, 2 Tennessees, 1 New Mexico, and 1 Pennsylvania they could try and throw in. And then it's
Right,
basically
gunnery
a
officer.
6v2.
Guam's in range to be hit. Those other 2 are also in range to be hit quite reliably from China. Right. Modern cruise missiles and shit have stupidly long ranges.
It's kind of what they're built for.
So, Henan and Saipan are also within the we can bombard this and knock it out range if they're hitting Guam. So,
Iwo Jima does have an airfield. That's what I was saying. So yeah, I'm looking. I've currently got that up, gunnery officer. Right, so we go, and it's as I said, it's a 6v2. I know this is the fight the Yamatos are built for.
the only issue with China threatening stuff is China threatens fucking everything.
Basically depends, I think, on how close the battle line gets.
Oh, no, I'm thinking of someone. Oh, no, I'm thinking of when Hayi went down. That was something like that. Sorry. Oh. No, I figured out which battle Chogar Strait was now.
Yeah. It honestly would be intriguing to see what happens, because as I said, the battle line for the US is mostly older battleships. You've got 2 16-inch, then 4 14-inch armed ships.
They're going to have some interesting engagement.
Wait, Yuki? Aren't you doing it on the British Railway network?
Then you're never on time.
Then you need to stop for 30 minutes at a random station because reasons.
That is usually how the British Rail seems to go.
Or hop on Forza and do a stint on Forza for the replacement bus service.
No one mentioned the Baltimore's gunnery officer. You've got 1 Northampton class in Louisville. You've got Portland, leadership of the Portland class, and Minneapolis, leadership of New Orleans. Denver and Columbia are both Cleveland class. And that's in Task Force 77, which is the Central Philippines Task Force. So you've then got 77.2.1, which is the 6 battleships and 4 Fletchers, 2 Cleaves. After that, you've got 77.3, which is the County class HMAS Shropshire, 2 Brooklyn class being Phoenix and Boise, 5 Fletchers and 1 Tribal, which God help the Japanese if that Tribal gets in range. And then you've got Destroyer Squadron 50...
Yamato myself.
Yeah, then you've got the Destroyer Squadron 54, which is 2 Fletchers in 107 and 3 Fletchers in 108, plus 18 motor torpedo boats.
And as a reminder, that Tribal is crewed entirely by Australians.
Yes, so they're probably honestly, they would probably be the people who go, bring out the boarding shotguns, we're going to take her by arm.
No. Dragon. The Tribal's not going to go after the capital ships. It's going to be like you've let a fox into the chicken coop amongst those Japanese destroyers.
Oh yeah, against the Japanese destroyers? Good luck.
Actually,
yeah. But
many
if
of them,
they actually...
There's 3 Asashios, 1 Shiratsu... Sorry, 4 Asashios, 2 Fubukis, and a Kagero. Yeah.
Which isn't the worst, admittedly. It's just not best.
Tribals.
But a tribal would like to have a word with
entirely by Australians.
Yeah. Honestly, the standards probably have a hell of a fight and call for assistance. Because it's then basically 3v1 if we split the numbers up. Honestly, you probably have the 2 Colorados try and focus on, or theoretically, you might have them all. You either split your fire to try and basically distract them, or have it say 1 or 2 shoot 1 and then 4 focus on the other. Is my suspicion. And then call for backup.
Help! Oh God! Oh help! There are 2 18-inch battleships in front of us.
Yeah, pride of the Japanese fleets here. Get the destroyers to launch torpedo attacks when they can. Get the motor torpedo boats in as well. Basically, try, or if they've got any torpedoes left, this is. And someone contact the carrier force. Because, yeah, even if the battleships might go, we want to try and take this ourselves, but If
The
they're being,
battleships don't have a
if they're-
I don't have a
if-
choice.
yeah, they'll have to. But if they can get carrier support, is better than nothing.
Mm.
Because they have anything. Because there was the USS Princeton nearby, but she was heavily damaged and scuttled nearby. Because that was on the Leyte Gulf side, even though it's based on, due to land-based aircraft. Beyond that, it basically comes down to a coin flip. Would Halsey help down south if Centre Force takes on Northern Forces? Possibly, but yeah. That's it. If you've got these two battleships in this position, in my opinion, the US is going to want to sink them.
Especially these battleships.
Like, these are the pride of the Japanese fleet.
There is no.
If these go down, the propaganda victory alone is huge. Let alone potentially the tactical. The tactical significance might not play as much of an effect at this point, but still, taking out the two largest battleships.
And also because actually, looking at these forces, the Americans very much.
Revenge
not.
killed by the standards. This is for Pearl comes to mind.
Well, I don't think it's going to be a stance that's going to decide it. It's going to be the destroyers the YOLOing.
It all depends basically on how it all plays out. So I said, I don't. At which time they're in basically the range, I don't know how many torpedoes are left on the US destroyers.
I know the
the
British
yeah.
doctrine, they wouldn't have fired the torpedoes in a destroyer engagement.
Well, we know that there's already a number of ships that were sunk by torpedoes. All three of Destroyer Division 4, which is the Asasio class, were sunk by torpedoes.
Yeah, and, well, looking at the course of the battle, very much these are two Japanese battleships charging the battle lines through.
Plus Halsey is a media hog. Yeah, he would very much try and spin it off. Yes, look what I did to sink the two largest battleships in all history. This is what I have done to personally ensure the safety of the US fleet, blah, blah, blah. Yuki, you'll find a lot of admirals are egotistical assholes. This is not an uncommon trait.
No.
I'll create that statement. All the famous admirals are egotistical dipshits.
No, I won't quite say that.
Because there's a reason it's considered a good thing that Nelson died at Trafalgar.
Right, Nelson. Yeah,
He
and
was
plenty of
an
non-famous ones were too.
twat.
Yes, Phoenix, I agree. Right,
King was
King
an egotistical
is very
twat.
much egotistical.
Mm,
And a bit of an
possibly.
anglophobe. And honestly, a few different other things, but he
Wanker.
did his job. But he did his job well enough. That's all you need of them, really. I said, honestly, you can pick pretty much any admiral or general, and you'll probably find they're a bit of a media hog, egotistical.
The only one I can think of that might be exceptions, Cunningham.
Yeah, Cunningham was relatively down to from what I'm aware, but this
Because
I'm more than willing to
I've
prove
seen
it
him
wrong.
described in various sources as a shy man. I want to know how a shy man is the admiral of the fleet.
Good connections. And speaking politely.
Gentlemen, I'm sorry for keeping you all waiting.
Yeah, Halsey was the fuck up in chief.
No, he just
Like,
had
like
flaws.
you sail your fleet into a typhoon once by mistake. You do it twice, you're just stupid.
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
fuck, Phoenix, shit.
Yes, Phoenix has been here for a while. He's not been in chat, but he's still been. He's not
where
been
are
in
we
DC, but he's been in
where
chat.
are we with the questions then?
If Phoenix is in chat, he
Hello.
can't hurt me.
Oh, don't. We've been leaving the Trafalgar questions for you. Because after all, Dr. Clark did explicitly say they had to be saved for you.
What if Trafalgar happened a few years later? The British win harder because you still have Admiral Nelson to lead them, and you still have the well-trained corps of British troops, and a few years later is not enough to correct the chronic flaws in French sailors and officers, and the Spanish can't really carry it all by themselves. The British just win, but harder, because they have more ships.
And the longer the French and Spanish fleets stay cooped up in Trafalgar, the less time they spend at sea, the less time they're actually training, and the worse their proficiency is going to be.
Yep.
And that was one of the kickers for the French and Spanish in this whole period, is just actually having the time at sea to train, get their crews up to the same degree of proficiency as the British. No.
I mean, British were still getting even better when it came to that shit as the war went on.
Well, that's because they were always at sea. I mean, it was just one of those things that practice makes perfect, as the saying goes. But no, it was really getting sea time is so very important, especially in that era above almost any other when it comes to practical experience.
Like it's
the large-scale colleges, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's worth pointing out that one of the major things that you see during the war is that actually the French frigates and the Spanish frigates, aka ships that can break out, spend long periods at sea, like their crews and officers tend to have good wars. They tend to give as good as they get, because again, they can break out, they can be at sea. What if Trafalgar, but with 1918 fleets, Britain wipes the floor with the British, with the French and Spanish?
Yeah,
That's not even.
So what's
like,
the
What Spanish fleet?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
exactly.
I'm sorry, but that's all we need to
When
say.
were-
Wait, what Spanish fleet?
I'm sorry, fleet. That's out of range where the
Ah,
Hispanias might actually be useful for once.
No.
No.
Yes, right. They do have at least a portion of a fleet.
I mean,
So they have
problem,
España and Alfonso the 13th.
yeah. The problem is like the Spanish.
Jamie the First isn't finished yet.
Yeah, the problem is that 1918 is just when Spain's naval rebuilding program takes off. So you haven't got the quartet of modern cruisers yet. You haven't got Spain's post-World War I destroyers yet. Like,
Because that would definitely make the difference against the Royal Navy in this period, yeah.
no.
It means how hard they go to get their asses
The
handed.
literal height of the Royal Navy.
No, I get
Yeah.
that, but the point I'm making is that they could actually complement some of France's problems, which is the fact that France doesn't have modern cruisers, that France doesn't have modern destroyers. Like the Spanish fleet could provide modern cruisers.
They can't because they haven't built them yet.
Yeah. But yeah, like the thing is, everyone forgets Spain enters the 1920s with a compact but very modern fleet with the latest in cruisers.
I wouldn't call a 12-inch dreadnought
Apart from the 12-inch
modern.
dreadnoughts.
Yes, but
Oh, yes, it's
But
pretty
cruisers
strictly
and
destroyers and
even
cruisers.
torpedo boats are some pretty fancy bits of kit.
but
Even
Like,
destroyers and cruisers.
looking at
yeah, the thing is,
they try their best
Yeah, Foxo.
with the Spaniards.
Foxo. The Hispanias are the backstops. Basically, if the Spanish Navy is fighting, if the Spanish Navy is fighting, let's say, the Italian fleet, just hear me out. Just for an example, especially in the 20s, and they are, let's say, for example, their cruisers are doing some commerce raiding, and the Spanish and the Italians send out, I don't know, let's say 2 or 3 to 4 of their cruisers to try and stop them, and one of their new heavy cruisers. The Spanish cruisers and destroyers can fall back behind, basically, as they get close to the Spanish coastline and the Italians are still pursuing, the 3 Hispanias rock up and go, yeah, so are you really sure you want to pursue them any further? It's not about being able to fight enemy battle lines and win. It's about being a backstop to enable Spanish cruisers to retreat to safety in port without being hounded all the way into the port.
And they're also like I've been doing a bit of research on Alhucemas Bay recently, and they've actually got decent command and control sort of facilities on. They've got some of the best radio sets of the Spanish fleet. Even this is in 25.
I'm trying to
So
find
they
what
have
cruises
got
France
some-
actually has.
So they have got some
France in this
modern
period?
cruisers and stuff
Yeah.
It's just armored cruisers for the most part. Hang on a second.
But it's all the
We're
point
talking
that
1908. Like it's basically there's some protected cruisers, but none of them can go faster than I think there was like one class that can actually make 23.5 knots, and that's the blistering,
Yeah, I
the
think I
fastest
finally
French cruiser
found
on the
Catchup.
planet.
Yeah, but the issue I've got with the Hispanias is they can work as a
Espanias.
good Hispanians. The fucking Spains. Oh, these translator name. That they
Well,
they
as
sort
long
of
as we get to
work.
call the British ships by a different language name. But and I
Sure,
think the
go
big
for it.
thing with the Hispania class is really the context in which they were procured, right? It was the Spanish were in talks with the Entente for cooperation because they're worried about being preyed upon by anybody in the Triple Alliance. And so the idea was that, if, let's say, if there was a war between the Entente and Spain and the Triple Alliance, right, that the Hispanias would, the main body of the Italian and the Austrian fleets and the Germans would be occupied by the French and the British or the Russians. So the only ships the Spanish would really have to worry about was enemy cruisers, particularly armored cruisers, maybe some of the pre-dreadnoughts if they were being fast pre-dreadnoughts if they were being used for raids. So the Hispanias could hope to fight off at most a pre-dreadnought, but probably armored cruisers or the like, if that was necessary to defend Spain itself. But that was kind of very much in the context of we don't need to worry about fighting dreadnoughts because our allies will have dreadnoughts. If you're on your own in the 1920s, especially, then things don't really match up so well because then you're just going to die beneath the wave of enemy has dreadnoughts and I don't, unless you have an ally to again support you.
Because I just think because the whole fleet situation is that's all well and good, unless the Italians decide to bring a single dreadnought with those cruisers.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. In an individual war, war of Spain against, say, any of the great powers, they were going to get demolished. There was no question about that. It was just the case of how do we effectively build for a coalition because as our strategy, we don't want to be stuck out fighting alone. We will have somebody on our side, and if we get involved in a war, we will have somebody on our side. We're not going to go looking for fights with powers that'll kick our teeth in if we can't help it.
Now, to be fair, they did also have plans for more dreadnoughts. But in 1913, they did plan to buy at least 3 more battleships of basically a slightly scaled down QE style design, which isn't the worst. And potentially they might have tried to do more. But that didn't happen because they were also having monetary issues. And it was
that's kind of the kicker with Spain, as always.
Yeah, Spain's economy only really does anything decent is sort of during the war because they're not fighting a war, unlike everyone else.
It's the reason why they had to go from 50 inch to 13.5 because money.
Yep.
We don't have it.
Why did most pre-Hittiork class carriers like the Midways and Saratogas still armed with 5-inch guns, even though anti-ship missiles exist at that point and fast jets as well? Why did the US still use the 5 inches as a point of defense before Seawiz and Sea Sparrow came into service? Basically because prior to missiles that an aircraft carrier could reasonably carry and reload on itself, so things like Sea Sparrow and other things like that, that's basically your air defense weapon for a carrier. That is your long-range air defense weapon in an age before you have missiles that are compact enough to slap onto a supercarrier that aren't going to impact flight operations.
Yeah, and I mean, to be strictly speaking, you can plug away with a 5-inch with proximity fuses at a cruise missile coming in. But the main thing really was just you kill the bombers before they get to the fleet, or before they can launch, because the bombers, the types of anti-ship missiles that were available early on had relatively limited ranges. So, or at least not only just pure flight, but also just the point at which the bomber could actually acquire the target for the missile and then launch. So to a certain degree, there was a lot less of a pressure to focus on having the carrier's individual air defense against anti-ship missiles. Obviously, as missiles developed, and also as defensive technologies developed, you could more effectively build missiles to counter missiles, or gun systems to counter missiles, right? But even a lot of missile systems were really not that competent at shooting down missiles until a decent ways into the Cold War itself. It could theoretically possible, but like a lot, you wouldn't exactly want to be. I mean, yeah, it's also a thing. You have escorts, and the escorts are going to be further out from the carriers, and they're going to be there to shoot down the bombers. I mean, that's the point of having extended range SAMs like Terrier or Talos. Which in this era, quite a few of them were also nuclear tipped SAMs to take out multiple bombers at once. That was the intention. But but it was also just a fundamental limit of technology. I mean, you really don't get point defense SAMs popping up in most navies until the 1970s, into the late 70s, but really in bulk in the 80s. And a lot of the same can be said for, say, close-in weapon systems that are actually good against missiles or designed to function primarily against missiles. When you think about like Phalanx, Goalkeeper, Dardo, stuff like that, I mean, that's really like starts getting rolled out in the late 70s and into the 1980s. Before that, well, really, actually, the big backstop for defense against anti-ship missiles at that point, prior to that, and through that point period too, is really its soft kill, which I think is heavily underrated because we always focus on hard kill so much in terms of shooting missiles down and such. But if you look at the record of anti-ship missile engagements in really up to the 90s, the vast majority of defeats are almost all by soft kill measures, be this chaff, electronic attack of the seekers, and other seduction methods. I mean, that's really the main killer of anti-ship missiles. So, for example, the Israelis in was it the 6-Day War, I believe, where they, or maybe in Yom Kippur, where they introduced, they've been working with the Italians with on electronic warfare systems, and they introduced them on their missile boats, and they are extremely effective at preventing the Syrian and Egyptian Styxes from actually functioning against their own torpedo boats or missile boats. On the other hand, the Egyptian and Syrian boats were not so equipped, and they all got mogged on by Gabriel anti-ship missiles. So
They got mugged.
those missile engagements are very one-sided. But yeah, because early seekers are very, very stupid, so they're very easy to trick with chaff or range gate pull-offs and such.
I'm sorry, but all I can see now is these poor Egyptian boats with like. I know this isn't how things actually sound. Just snooker sound effects as the missiles just come in like.
Next question, maybe?
Yes. What if Nelson survived Trafalgar? What would his career have been like? Nelson dying at Trafalgar was the best thing that could have happened to his long-term historical record. Because when Nelson isn't fighting things, Nelson tends to get into trouble ashore.
A lot of trouble.
I mean, this is the guy who almost got kicked out of the Navy for screwing a lord's wife.
It's
Then there was the entire time where he disobeyed orders for 3 months and basically decided, you know what, I'm going on land to go home.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole...
Oops.
Nelson was a free bird. It made him brilliant as an admiral. And shite as an admiral, political admiral.
Yes, he was a good fighting man. So he was a good fighting
But
officer.
not a desk jockey.
Yeah, no, not at all. Battle of Jutland, but with 2024 fleets. The Germans are buggered. Because I'm sorry, it's not so much the surface fleet that matters here, of either side.
Yeah, I was
The
going to say,
Royal
you
Navy
kind of
have-
don't really have much in terms of anti-ship missiles for the Royal Navy surface fleet at present.
Yeah, but the
um,
Royal Navy has 10 astute class attack submarines. Have fun, Germany.
True, but to be fair, you only have one of those available at best in 2024, because almost the entire fleet is laid up or otherwise waiting for maintenance. So,
I mean,
that's not really ideal, and the Germans do have a bunch of functional Type 2 and 2As. So, that may not work out so much in your favor. But the main thing
Can you
is...
use
just-
can AW torpedoes hit ships?
I mean, so...
I mean, I
Most
can't
of
see
them
why they
are
shouldn't.
designed to, most of them have effective ceilings so they don't get distracted, so they don't actually go against surface targets, and plus, the other thing is the warheads on them are shaped charges that are meant to punch through submarine pressure hulls. If you use them against ships, the effective thing is, it's like being hit with a relatively small, by anti-ship missile standards, shaped charge warhead underwater, but, with none of the kinetic energy of a missile. So it'll punch a hole, it'll do damage, but it's not super effective. And that also relies on you getting close enough to use them. And also, which is, if you're dropping from a helicopter, that's kind of risky given, most of the German fleet does have some form of, either RAM or ESSM or SM2 on some ships, or just guns. And then and then from your own surface ships, well, that's only the Type 23s at present, so that's a bit limited.
And
Um,
I think was.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's on the other hand, I mean, because the Germans do in theory have like a throw weight advantage in anti-ship missiles, but they don't have many, and the British have 6 Type 20 to 45s, which are very 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 much up to the task of intercepting friggin' what do the Germans have? Harpoon and older harpoons and what's the Swedish one? RBS 15. Yeah.
I'd also like to say hello. This is F-35. It has something to say about this.
True, though the problem with F-35 at present for the British is that you only have Paveway 4 laser-guided bombs to use against the Germans. Granted,
I suppose.
a lot of the German ships don't have very long-range air-to-air missile or surface-to-air missiles, but nor are they exactly free money, unless it's the F-125s, in which case they are. But
I suppose also.
Would the German ships be able to see the F-35 though? Is the question.
That's the question. Yeah.
I mean, so
I suppose on bomb release they will, but
well,
Yeah, but
it's one of those things where so stealth is not an on and off switch, right? So it very much depends on the radars that are looking at it, at what range, all kinds of factors, right? And so like F-35 will do very well against some of the German radars, but then say like the German air warfare frigates, the F-123, F-124s, they have L bands that should be up to the task of at least knowing the F-35s are there. Granted, those are not good enough to actually track and engage an F-35, but if you get an F-35 close enough, an X-band radar off a ship is going to detect it and be able to track it and engage it. Stealth. The stealth is fantastic, but it's not like none of your radars will not work against me at close range. And we're talking about releasing, a 500-pound bomb.
I mean, really, the main thing would be the submarine duels between the Type 212s and the Astutes, and that would probably be the main thing.
Yeah. Which again, in 2024, it's do I have an Astute available versus a decent number of Type 212s? Because the Germans have 6 total.
I mean, if it is like specifically in Jutland, the problem would be is that you just don't really have a lot of places to maneuver. So even if assuming apparently the Germans can't bring their how many aircraft do they have? I forgot. I mean, you could
the German Air
I'm
Force.
I'm assuming they don't
Or-
bring the German Air Force, but like assuming they don't, or like it's just like the
well, I don't see why they
Yeah.
can't, because they do have a North Sea coast. So they
And
wouldn't
wasn't there plans to
necessarily
use Zeppelins at least for
I mean,
Jutland? So I guess
They
which-
were
which-
used at
which-
Jutland.
It was just foggy.
I
But,
thought
like-
they ended up getting there too late because of technical.
The reason why
problems.
I'm asking is mainly because it would be a lot of MPAs too.
Mm.
So like it'd be really funny if there's a P3 duel.
Oh my God, could you imagine? Yeah, but this is also one of those things that's also kind of
Really
awkward.
game
Is
like each
even
other.
though both navies have both air forces, the RAF and the Luftwaffe are both within range. None of them have the anti-ship mission. Like they both retired that capability without replacing it. So it's gonna be a little bit of an awkward thing of like they both
I
have
mean,
to try and use
main-
guided bombs against surface ships at sea, which is gonna be a bit goofy.
Yeah, the main thing I'd probably be looking at would be like the P3s against submarines because assuming let's just say for example they trade 1-to-1 in terms of submarines and these suits clearly without the readiness of the Type 212s win. That 212 is not going to have a very good time just being hounded by a bunch of MPAs, but it can
No.
potentially. Yeah, it's just not going to have.
I suppose the question
Lions is pointing out
which
the UK
ships
Eurofighters
are
do
in
have
which
Storm Shadows.
fleets.
Storm Shadows aren't anti-ship missiles.
Yeah,
I
They
know
can
people say
only
that
target fixed targets. So, like in Libya, for example, in 2011, they did destroy ships, but that's because those ships were stationary in port, so they
Yeah.
just targeted them to the GPS location. But they can't be used against ships at sea because they don't have an ability to engage moving targets. And the Germans have the same capability on paper with Taurus in terms of we can hit a stationary target if it's a ship, if the ship's a stationary ship, but nothing at sea.
That just had me thinking for a second. I need to check something.
Careful, don't hurt yourself.
No, trust me, you'll like this if it's what I'm thinking.
Oh,
yeah.
heck.
I think there's like.
Well, as I recall,
who even has the anti-ship
as I
missile?
recall, Germany still uses tornadoes in an anti-ship role, theoretically.
No.
They retired
Or they
that for
finally
that mission.
retired them.
Yeah, they don't have corpsmen anymore. So, and yeah, no, the
I know they
only
used
Air
to.
Force. I think what is the only? Probably I think the Swedes and
French?
I forget if the French Air Force does not actually do anti-shipping. It's only the French Navy.
Ah, okay. I was just thinking
They don't have it's
aircraft.
only they don't have the Exocet. It's only the French Navy. And granted, within the realm of like technically any of these air forces can use guided bombs against surface ships. It's just with all the risks that entails. I believe in terms. I forget if the Spanish Air Force has anti-ship missile capability because they do have F-18s, but I don't know if they actually bought harpoons for them.
Because apparently only one squadron of tornadoes currently still in use by the Germans, from what I can find. Though apparently they are
No.
still theoretically.
They're definitely not part of the Marineflieger, so...
But no, it's part of the Luftwaffe. They were merged back into the Luftwaffe, but still apparently can do naval warfare. Like, Tactical Air Force Wing 51, apparently.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they don't practice or have harpoon stocks.
Wouldn't
And the Germans never used harpoons for the mission. They used the Cormoran, the AS-34, which is,
Yeah.
I believe, retired now.
Wait, isn't the... Hold on, what squadron was it again?
50 Tactical Force Wing 51.
Aren't those guys the ECR guys?
Possibly at this point.
Hold on. Hey,
Oh,
They
yeah.
still, apparently they still operate 37 tornadoes. The tornadoes.
Yeah, because they should have a mix of ECR and IDS. IDS do land strike, and then
Patriot as well?
Yeah, and then the ECR are their seed aircraft.
Sorry, I don't know if those guys can carry harpoons.
Wouldn't. Yeah, no, I
They-
don't know.
they don't
If
have
weren't,
them.
Probably not.
They just don't have them in the
tornado was
first
ever built
place.
to carry harpoon anyway.
I'm trying to... Yeah, who the fuck would carry harpoon? The Canadians actually would be up there, but they're not European.
Yeah. Unless for some reason they got
It
very,
would-
very
Hang on a
lost.
second. Let me double check because I have to the spreadsheets, Batman. Who has AGM? Let me see. Spain. Did you buy? Okay, so they did. The Spanish bought at least 20
Portuguese?
AGM 84A in 1987 for their F-18s. Let's see. Who else in Europe do I have?
They have anything for the Portuguese? I'm
Italy?
pretty sure they bought
Do you
AS
actually have them?
AGMs, right?
Portugal. I don't. I know they bought Harpoon Block ones. I don't have which model. Let's see. Netherlands. No specific information. Greece. No.
Turkey?
Turkey has not bought air launch that I know of. Unless.
Hmm.
Hang on a second. No, I don't think they have. Denmark is a no. Yeah, I think it's actually just the Spanish that bought it then in Europe.
To quote Moe, as much as I'm enjoying this argument, you should really get back to hosting Rambling Fleet.
I've had no chance to make it in, so I've just been busy doing this while you
That's
guys
why
have
I
been
was kind of
talking.
at least saying something. Hey, I'm finding this interesting, but still.
I mean, hey, you guys have been doing a better job than me.
Spitfire's asking, since it's tied into it, Spitfire's asking, Portugal doesn't have air-launched harpoons?
No.
Question mark?
I mean, yeah, have you seen Portugal's Air Force? It's not very good.
Battle of Jutland.
Yeah, I mean it's also just a lot of air forces never really got into the anti-shipping capability in the first place, because it does require having the missiles and also having the specialized training for whatever squadron is going to be doing it. So a lot of NATO countries didn't really bother with it in the Cold War period, or it was on like things like MPAs. And then a lot of them just retired after the Cold War ended because the Soviet surface fleet was no longer really an issue.
Yeah,
my
it's also
Jesus
just
Christ.
tactical me because the only one that would really kind of make sense would be Germany and Denmark because the Baltic
I thought our
Sea
P3s had them.
Gentlemen, can we wrap this up fairly rapidly? I would like to move on.
Absolutely not. No, I was kidding.
Battle of
just denied, I'm afraid.
I'm just going to make it very clear. Battle of Jutland, the Roman fleet, unanswerable. It doesn't work. There's no real
Yes, it
Germanic
is.
fleet to fight against. There's also
But-
no real
I mean-
components. It doesn't really work. There's
Well,
no...
clearly you take the Carthage fleet.
No, that doesn't. It doesn't really work.
And it's
It's.
I mean,
No,
I'm just saying,
right.
Actium's
Just-
up there.
a colder.
True.
No, what I
don't
meant
know
was-
any-
it's
It's
the-
a Germanic
Carthage,
fleet,
but-
right? Does that mean the Germanic people have those accounts of what were essentially proto cogs
No, they didn't.
that the Celtic and Britannic people used, the high-walled
No.
ships on the Atlantic coast
No, they
that the
didn't.
Romans had trouble boarding?
No, they didn't. That's as far
Yes,
as
they
I'm-
did.
As far as I'm
Yeah, they
aware.
They did have trouble boarding them.
This is why I don't like doing ancient questions, because I have no interest in the period at all.
I mean,
Yeah.
so
Carthago
broadly,
delenda est.
broadly speaking, you either are fighting other Romans at Ella Actium, or you were fighting something like I forgot the tribe. They were in Brittany or Britannia. Who the fuck were those guys? They had really big ships, and Caesar had trouble dealing with them. But there are options that you can use, but like the problem with analyzing. I mean, I'm going to assume all these Battle of Jutland questions are like, what if there's a big battle in Jutland? The problem with that is that Jutland in the ancient period is not very good for naval warfare because A, it's super fucking cold. Problem. With no AC or using wooden boats, not a good idea. Second of all, most
Why
of these
would you
ships,
fight
especially
there?
warships,
Why would you fight there,
yeah,
first
most-
of all?
you could fight off like the coast near like near Bremerhaven or like modern day Bremerhaven, but you have to be in sight of coast usually.
Jutland.
And that's
Ancient navigation was not fantastic, and also a lot of the ships were not meant for like deep, open sea operation in the first
honestly,
place.
you can't.
That's why every
you
naval
can't-
action is coastal.
Roman fleets already had problems with the sea in general. Like,
And-
Neptune hated them. Sending them to the
Depending-
North Seas even worse.
Depending on the person, because Agrippa's very good at it. So was fucking what is it? Germanic.
The North
So
Sea is
it
bigger
really
than almost any point of the Med as well. Like sort of
I mean,
across in certain areas.
the large point being is like, yeah, it super depends on the both the commander and just the situation entirely. But like, yeah, no, this is the time period in which ships don't have like onboard stoves or way to cook food. So like, the reason why you don't have ships can't leave the coast is because they can't eat on the boat. So
Yeah.
it's a really
And yes, Yuki, Rome had a lot of boats. They had multiple fleets, multiple times. A lot
You
of
could
the
also
time,
just build them up from scratch for certain campaigns. Like if you talk about like the North Sea and such, like there's a pretty significant naval component to a lot of the actions or invasions of German territory. What would
Like-
become Germany?
hell, those entire campaigns in Rome, basically to attack Greece sort of area, they would build up massive fleets. Those fleets wouldn't make it home, but they would build up a massive fleet, lose it potentially in battle, go back home, build up another fleet.
It didn't
Come
need
again?
to come back home in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like they weren't really like solid. Like this is the ship that we commission is going to stay in service forever. It was more just like we build it for the job needs being done, and then that's it. I mean,
You are expected.
granted, that's not to
provi-
say that they didn't do that as well. I mean, the ships had names and such, but
You're expected to fight
Also-
just one battle. If you succeed, well done. If you do
And
not,
also,
you've done
Dragon,
your duty.
if it's a Roman ship, the place you've just gone to is now probably home as well.
no.
Depends. It
Yeah,
depends
no,
a
Germany.
lot.
Germany was not one of those places.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
I'm
Yeah,
just
but in the
I'm-
Mediterranean.
Look, okay, can we?
Now you know how Foxo feels when she has to deal with train questions.
So, so the final question for today, is actually fairly interesting. Battle of Trafalgar 2024 fleet. Who wins? I'm sorry, but actually this is a W for the Franco-Spanish Armada because holy shit, is Britain fucked.
When does this happen? Because like depending on it,
2024 fleets.
the Charles de Gaulle. I mean, actually, does it? So,
So
the main
basically,
problem I have with these
fleets
questions.
today, basically. Mhm.
Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna cut you off.
Yeah, go on.
The main problems I have with these questions are we assuming that these fleets are fighting in the same position as well? Because the problem with that being is it is a knife fight.
Yeah,
I would
like,
assume.
some of
I
the
would
previous
assume
questions
we
said yes.
extend- I would assume, given the fact that if it's a knife fight, it's just whoever fires first and fires quickest, which is kind of boring. and doesn't really give an option to explore how each navy fights,
Yeah,
which is one of the main points of a question like this.
I was going to say also, this means that the Spanish have standards, so they can technically just vomit standards at close range against everything.
Exactly.
Which is,
and
they had call it single-arm bandits on their, on their parries.
Let's assume we're talking about positioning in terms of where the fleets are is the same, but let's extend the distance between them. So basically, just run the battle positioning through a printer.
Basically, the Royal Navy would be in a blockade position outside of Spain, which would be, just that much.
So we're talking
away.
so we're talking about a good 200 to 400 miles off the coast to be near enough to respond, but not near enough to be constantly barraged.
Hold on, wait. Where would that be? Because I'm trying to think, could you possibly have it so that,
either way,
at least assuming off the location of Trafalgar, position's really important here because the main thing is that if the British are at the open sea while Spain is,
Spain and France
in Gibraltar itself, or even mainland France, but if one side is they're opposite sides of the Straits of Gibraltar, you could potentially have it so that you just have a submarine blocking the Straits of Gibraltar, and then it's a carrier fight. That's an optimal strategy. It really depends.
Yeah. This is. Let's assume both
Someone
sides.
kills a sub.
Yeah, let's assume both sides are in the open ocean to the west of the Spanish coastline, so they're both in the Atlantic.
I mean, this is. I would say this is going to favor the French and the Spanish.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree on this one.
I mean, they have. I mean, not that the Spanish submarine fleet really is anything to write home about, but the French also have their SSNs, and they have a fleet of very capable ASW frigates. And between the.
Yeah, go on.
Sorry.
Go on. It's fine.
Between the French and the Spanish, they now have plenty. The Spanish fill all the holes in the French Navy's air defense problem, because they have 5 of the F-110 class. And the French and the Spanish do have anti-ship missile stocks that the Royal Navy lacks if it comes to a surface action. And then in terms of carrier strike, I mean, I don't think the Gaul is going to have much of a decent shot because Rafale with AM-39 is not exactly the peak anti-shipping threat in 2024, and the Type 45 is more than enough for that. Not to mention if you have F-35Bs flying, defensive combat air patrol for the fleet or whatever they're doing. On the flip side, the Royal Navy is also does not really have much throw weight in any capacity, so it's kind of hard for them to sink anything.
Juan Carlos I may as well not bring her Harriers.
Yeah, I mean, she's probably better off just being used to host ASW helicopters. I mean, because her Harriers will lack, and I mean, they just straight up lack. I mean, they can do air to air, but they lack serious air to ground for use against surface ships because Harpoon was never integrated into Harrier. I don't think the Spanish bought Maverick the way the Italians did. I might be wrong on that, but yeah, their options are pretty fucking limited. And you certainly don't want to take one against an F-35.
So I assume we're looking at a far closer fight than you would think, but it's going to entirely come down to circumstance and how the fight actually goes as to who wins it.
Going to come down to how hard of a time the French and the Spanish have with killing the Royal Navy. Because the Royal Navy is at least defensively still a pretty formidable force. It's just the Royal Navy has really, really, really limited ability to actually do serious damage to the Franco-Spanish force.
They're basically going to be leaning on the astute, going for God's sake, or and I mean the astute singular. They're going to be leaning on that, going for God's sake, make every fucking torpedo you have count, for God's sake.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's a that astute's going to have to be dealing with the worry of multiple French nuclear submarines itself. So it doesn't have really the full range of options that the that it's not even as many options as they would have against, say, just the German or the Spanish submarine fleets. Not that the Germans are involved in here, but just compared to the last scenario.
Thing is, if they run into Rubis class SSNs, then the astute can probably take on, even if all 3 of them are there. They can given they're a much older type and they're much smaller and less capable. An astute could probably 3-on-1 the Rubis class. But if the Sufferans show up, that's an entirely different kettle of fish. Since they're roughly...
Yeah, well, I mean, I would generally, I tend to lean away from being too deterministic as to, like, who wins a 3v1 or whatever, 2v1 or whatever, but
bear in mind, I very, very deliberately used general terms there. I refuse to nail down. I absolutely
no, it's just the thing is the French do have 2 Suffrens in service now, so, they have those plus the available Rubuses, which is, let's say if you have to worry about, say, the astute worrying about the Suffrens, then what are the Rubuses up to, and what the hell is Spanish is the S80 plus. I mean, I don't rate that especially highly, but at least it works now.
Would having all 6 astutes change the calculus here?
Well, we can't.
It would make it
can't
considerably more challenging for the
we can't have all
for
6.
the Franco-Spanish fleet.
We can't have all 6 because Agamemnon is still in her pre-sea trial testing phase. She hasn't even undergone sea trials yet. But we could get all 5 if, in theory, for some reason they were out of
Yeah, it would definitely force the Spanish and French to play much more defensively because that's a much greater threat, and their submarine force at that point, I would argue, is at best equal to, if not inferior, at that point.
I mean, one thing you can say.
So it really becomes they'd have to lean on their surface fleet a lot more because I mean, the thing is with the French, they do have 8 extremely formidable anti-submarine warfare frigates. So. It's like I know a lot of submarine people like to pull the whole there's 2 types of ships or 2 types of naval vessels, targets and submarines, but like submarines get killed a lot in exercises too, a lot. It's just nobody really shouts about it as much, but it's definitely not a one-sided scenario, especially with the capabilities that modern ASW frigates have. But
as far as I'm aware, the astutes don't carry any anti-ship missiles. They carry Tomahawk Block 4s, but that's in a land attack role.
Yeah, which I mean, to be honest, I mean, with the air defenses the French and the Spanish have, I mean, the size of a salvo that an astute can launch is not really formidable or very credible against unless you're catching like a Santa Maria class frigate out on its own. That's basically an OHP. But it's really their heavyweight torpedoes are the main thing.
I mean, Spearfish as built was terrifying. It's still fucking terrifying now.
Spearfish is absolutely a very credible anti-ship torpedo or anti-submarine torpedo. No question about that. Just you
all right there, Phoenix?
No, I'm just I can only agree with that.
I mean, Mark 48 is an incredible torpedo as well, but just Spearfish has just it's almost like what was it? It's almost like who developed it? Hang on one second. It's almost like GAC Marconi looked at how they failed with the Tigerfish and basically said, "We will do so much better," and then just developed Spearfish. And just decided like. It's almost like God basically threw them a W and said, "There, you know what? You had a bad fuck up with Tigerfish. I'm going to give you a nice one now." Oh dear. Good times. Right. So basically, on that, gentlemen, we've actually run 15 minutes over where I wanted to be, but I feel like we had a fairly decent conversation. Thank you very much, Phoenix, for coming, and Moe as well. You actually make it possible to answer a lot of these more modern questions. It's not Moe, sorry.
Moe. I was gonna,
Sierra! Ugh, for God's sake, my memory is having problems. Thank you,
this
Sierra.
This is like being racist towards Canadians don't look all the same, man.
No, this isn't a problem. This is I am having serious issues with name recollection and application. Memory? Yeah, I'm having serious memory issues. I may need to go to the doctor.
I get that we need to put you in your wheelchair and put you to bed, but still.
I keep missing words and losing clear things I used to have a second ago. It's getting a problem. But yeah,
have you thought of drinking more hot chocolate?
I've thought of going to the doctor. Anyway,
no, scientifically proven, chocolate helps your memory.
Maybe.
So does brain tumors.
Yeah. Thank you.
Does it?
Yeah.
I guess it decreases the length of time I have to worry about your memory fading.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you Phoenix and Sierra for helping us answer the more modern stuff. Thank you, Garden Chair, for showing up as always. Nice to have you here. Thank you, Desert Fox and Dragon, for being the troublesome twosome, who basically are the core of Rambling's co-host
Have I
team.
pissed you off?
No,
Have I pissed you off?
no,
Let him finish
Oh,
at
you
least.
only call me Desert Fox when I've pissed you off.
no.
She's got a point there.
I'm using full names. I'm using full
Yeah.
Discord IDs right now. It appears as though I know what the next phase of my evening is, given the vote has gone quite clearly towards a certain
it?
game.
It's X?
I haven't decided yet, because that's tomorrow's game that's still going. I'm talking about it'll be a new game today. I haven't decided what mod set yet. I'm just deciding that right now. Thank you everyone for coming. I hope you all have a fantastic time on
Pretty easy tonight.
YouTube. I'm gonna